So I'm going to talk about my new book, which, there are many things in it, and I can say all kinds of things about it. But I thought I would talk about an idea that is actually not in the book, but that I've been thinking about a lot since writing it, and which encapsulates a lot of what the book is about. And it's this idea that's called capitalization, and it is a concept that a very brilliant psychologist named James Flynn has written a lot about. Those of you who know something about IQ research will have heard of the Flynn effect. That's James Flynn's idea. And he's written a lot about this concept of capitalization, which is what is the rate at which a society capitalizes on its potential? In other words, what percentage of people who are capable of doing something actually end up doing that thing, right? How efficiently do we make use of the talents within a given group of people? So let me give you an example. I don't know how many of you read Michael Lewis's book, The Blind Side, which is this extraordinary book about a young man in East Memphis, a teenager, who's 6'6" and 350 pounds, and he's discovered by and adopted by a wealthy white family, and they realize that he's an extraordinary athlete, and they work with him until he becomes one of the finest offensive linemen in the country. And in fact, he's about to be drafted into the NFL just many years later and make a gajillion dollars. And it's this extraordinary story, but the part of it that always stayed with me when I read it was right at the very end, the kid, whose name is Michael Oher, says that he's from the slums of Memphis, East Memphis, and he says, if everyone who I grew up with who was into football, who had real ability in football, actually ended up playing football, they'd need to have 2 national football leagues. And what he was saying was that that East Memphis did not do a very good job of capitalizing on its athletic ability, right? And so Lewis actually follows up on this, and he does this. He talks to some people in the East Memphis school system, and he asks them, what percentage of kids in East Memphis who get a college athletic scholarship actually end up going to college? And the answer was 1 in 6, which absolutely floored me, because I would have thought that when it comes, if there was one thing in America that we were really good at doing, it would be exploiting the athletic ability of our youth, in particular of our African-American youth. I would have thought that in an inner city area, the capitalization rate for sports would have been 90%. But in fact, what we learn in East Memphis is that the capitalization rate is 1 in 6. It's 16%, right? So now think about it. If in something that we care about as much as sports, right? There's possibly nothing in American society that we devote more time and attention and intellectual resources to than the maximization of the professional sporting experience. In something that we care that much about, our cap rate is 16%. So how high must it be in things that we don't care that much about?
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Everybody, I'm Preacher Mars. Of course, I hope you know me by now. I'm the host of the SOS and ShOUT show. Hope you are having an amazing day. Again, I want to welcome you. If it's your first time coming to the show, relax, you're amongst family. I'm the host, but I don't own the show. I just provide the platform. This is the show for the people, who I will be introducing shortly. But if it's your first time coming on the show, I want you to relax, enjoy yourself, get a couple of something to drink, hopefully non-alcoholic, maybe some popcorn, and join in the conversation, because you are part of the ShOUT Show family from this point on to the end of the show. And I'm telling you, you're dealing with and you're involved with an eclectic group of people, a special group of thinkers. I say that they have intellectual power and capacity that we need to just unleash on the world in a lot of times. But for here, we're just going to have a little fun, if you don't mind. I'll explain the video in a moment. If you guys don't mind, just give me a minute. And if it's your first time, sometimes we open up with a video. Sometimes it's comedy, but we try and keep it moving. We like to keep it fresh, and I'm going to explain that as well from the idea and the eye scope of being a creative. Okay, so if you don't mind, click the subscription button, the link button, the notification button, or whatever the buttons are. If not, you don't want to click those, just turn the volume up so you can hear us. And actively participate, contribute to the conversation. Get in the comment section. Say something positive. Hey, everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Hey, I hope your family's doing well. Good day, everybody. Something positive. And the Shout Out family will shout you out and show love, because this is a show about love, ideas, and motivation. Okay? So I'm going to show you how this works if you're coming on the show for the first time. We have people who are Shout Out Show royalty. I'm going right down the line. We have Sister Ree. Sister Ree is the show dietitian, the craft services director. She takes care of all Preacher Moss's dietary needs, as well as Christy Santiago. Santiago is on hiatus in Tennessee. She lives in Dallas, but she's doing some work up there. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much. We're trying to have a good week. We're to the end of it, brothers and sisters. Let me tell you about one of the wheels on this show. One of the wheels on this show is Sister Sultana Whitfield, who is our consultant producer, who never fails. She fails never on this show. She has been instrumental in bringing us a process and a procedure where the show has grown. We've had different iterations, and we just keep getting better. And I say keep getting better. I say we, because the guests keep getting better. The Shout Out Show family just keeps getting more talented. They have more ideas, and it's hard to explain when you're dealing with someone that's really, really organic, okay? Because if I say it's a certain way, by tomorrow it might be a totally different way. That's the way it is. And I have to say something about the Shout Out Show family. They are, by happenstance, turned into a small crew of just creatives. Creatives. I'm looking to see who's going to have this show next. Just creatives, and I love it. Sister Aika, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, all the way from Indonesia, brothers and sisters. She comes from Dapak, outside of Jakarta. She tunes in. We hope you're doing well with your family. She's probably fresh off the rug for prayer times, but she tunes in, and we appreciate you. Brother Altaf Rashid, my brother from up north. That's your brother, Malcolm Gladwell, that I opened the show with, also from Toronto. Brother Altaf comes to us every day. Every day. He tunes in, 6 o'clock Eastern Time. He tunes in, he contributes, and he makes the show. He gives it a different flavor. I really enjoy that, because we have a lot of flavors in our comment section. We have a lot of flavors with the Shout Out Show family. I love it. Thank you so much for your comments, Sister San Diego. We're going to be putting this thing together, and keep us in your du'as. Keep us in your du'as. This is a topic I hesitated. Let me just say that. I hesitated to even talk about it, and I'm going to tell you why. Sister Sultana Ali, up in New Jersey, originally from New York. We appreciate you coming to the show, and I know you're going to contribute as you usually do. This might be a topic that you actually enjoy. I know it's a topic that I felt like I needed to do some homework, but then again, I was like, I don't know if I need to do homework on it. I think maybe it just needs to be a really, really organic discussion. And we have Sister Sakina Mujahid, all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina, doing big things, trying to help people, heal people out in Charlotte, doing social services work. We appreciate you, sister. She is a frontline worker, and we salute you. Okay? So Throwback Thursday is remembering outliers in your life. Let me explain what an outlier is and what a hero is, okay? An outlier is a person who creates dreams, processes things outside of the normal system, if you will. Okay? There's a great quote by Arnold Schopenhauer. I think it's Arnold Schopenhauer. I think Arthur Schopenhauer. I'm sorry. Great quote that he has that will give you a little bit of a scope into what I mean when I talk about outliers. His quote is, "Talent is the ability to hit a target other people cannot hit. Genius is the ability to hit a target no one else could see." Let me say it again. Talent is the ability to hit a target no one else could hit. Genius is the ability to hit a target no one else could see. Outliers are trying to hit targets no one else can see. There's no joy in hitting a target no one else can hit. Somebody eventually going to hit it. But the one you can't see, that's the one. And I'd say as an artist, as a teacher, as a social activist, I've always been intrigued with hitting the target no one else can see. You know, sometimes on the show you hear me talk about forecasting. I literally will sit around and look at a situation and try and figure out the different variances on a situation. Not because I like to sit around, but it's like I like to see what the different variances are so I can come up with solutions. I can come up with best pathways forward, protocols, things like that, course of actions, you know, whether it's stand-up or things like that. I mean, that's always been my love as a creative. I can even tell you now, people think I did All It Made Me Funny. I did do All It Made Me Funny. I found it All It Made Me Funny, but it wasn't the idea that I wanted to entertain Muslims. That was the talent part of it. The genius part of it is that you could take entertainment and pull together fashions of the Muslim community that normally wouldn't deal with one another. Indigenous and immigrant Muslims normally wouldn't deal with one another. And the idea is if you can craft this thing called comedy correctly, you could bring them up under this place and have them interact, engage, laugh, have an appreciation for what's being said on stage, and in the long space, ask somebody how they're doing. And the early parts of All It Made Me Funny, you know what the genius part of it is? We got people to pray together in places, not only praying people they normally don't pray with, but praying in places they normally don't pray in. All praises due to Allah. And even now, brothers and sisters, this is why I love the show. This is why I love the show so much. And I really appreciate all of you, if I haven't said it recently. I appreciate all of you, and I pray Allah continue to bless you and protect you and your families. I haven't really been writing a lot of stand-up. And the reason I haven't been writing a lot of stand-up is really a reflection of what you see. So if I were going to write a bunch of jokes, it's probably going to be around insurrection, ineffective politicians, job loss, pandemic, isolation, anxiety, depression, because that's what you see. That's what you see. And if I were to give you anything other than that, then honestly, I'd just be lying to you. If I didn't say those things by omission in regards, I'm lying to you. And that's something I never want to do with the audience. There are some funny things that happen. Some funny, not so funny. But, I realize also that I don't want the art to be compulsive. I want it to come to me. I want it to come to me in a way where I have to work to craft it and then give it to you. But to give it to you in the best form that I can give it to you. So let me talk to you about outliers. I'm a creative, and at times I've been an outlier in my life. Not a social, I'm not socially distant or thing. You just think differently. Many of you have been outliers in your life because you thought differently. Everybody went left, you went right. Some people went left, some people went right. Some of us just turned around and went the opposite way. And an outlier, in most cases, brothers and sisters, is not a hero. Like your parents are heroes. Like my mom and my dad, they're my heroes. But why are they my heroes? My uncles and my aunts, they're my heroes. Why are they my heroes? I'm going to tell you why they're my heroes, right? A hero has a situation, an event that calls for a course of action. And that course of action isn't necessarily I'm doing anything extraordinary. I'm doing the right thing with a certain level of proficiency. It achieves the goal. Outliers mean oftentimes we don't necessarily know the goal. We have an idea where we want to go to. But if it's not visible, can you really call it a goal? Oftentimes, I've burdened people when they ask me about my writing process, and I say, well, just listen to music. Because it's easy for me to talk about music writing rather than comedy writing, because comedy writing is so, it's there, but it lacks nuance. Is it going to take me a different place? Per se, me doing All It Made Me Funny is not about doing comedy. It's really about the transition from doing stand-up to taking stand-up and really framing it as religious work. That's the genius. That's the beautiful part of it. And even this show, brothers and sisters, it's not about me as the host. It's about us having a creative process and a creative exchange. Do you realize we're going on 300 shows? A creative exchange over the course of almost 300 shows, whereby, you know what? I owe all of you a deep debt of gratitude. A deep debt of gratitude. Because in the midst of all of this pandemic stuff, you've given me a space where at least once a day, for 30 minutes, I have to be disciplined. I have to have a protocol of how I talk to you, and you have to have a protocol of how we relate in this particular situation. Why is that major? I'll tell you why it's major. To the point that Malcolm Gladwell said that, why are people unable, for lack of a better word, unsuccessful doing the things that they want to do? He gave you the phenomenon of sports. And that young man he talked about played for the Baltimore Ravens. He played for the Baltimore Ravens. What I love about what he said is this thing here. It's the thing that we all have the potential to do something that's admirable, but to do something that is admittedly off the charts. Admittedly so far out of the mainstream, you almost are afraid to say it to people. And this show, I want to take an opportunity for all of us to remember on Throwback Thursday some of the outliers that we had in our lives. Some of the people that did some very different, drastic things. And maybe we couldn't appreciate it right then, but we appreciate it now. Why? Because 9 times out of 10, they're not there anymore. And 10 times out of 10, even if they're still there, they can't repeat the same thing. Outliers don't really repeat themselves. Someone asked me why I didn't do All It Made Me Funny 2. And I gave a really, really vague answer. But the truth of it is, why would I do something again that I've already done? Where's the challenge? When I did my comedy special, I was reaching for that space. I wanted to do something, hit a target no one else could see. Not hit. I wanted people to walk away with, I've just seen something extremely unique. And doing this show, brothers and sisters, I don't know if you really understand just how unique you are in a process, in an artistic process. So all of you in your own ways are outliers. I could see it in the box. I can see it when you guys come up with comments. It's amazing. And I've grown up with outliers in my life. One of the biggest outliers I had, of course, was my comedy, my stand-up comedy dad, Dick Gregory. Not because he was a comedian, brothers and sisters, in the civil rights. He was everybody's comedian in the civil rights. It's what he did outside of comedy. Diet books, politics, just these things, the Bahamian diet, running, fasting, that was so far outside of comedy that it endeared me to love this guy. He has a book called Callous on My Soul, and you should read that book because it's just amazing. He has 2 books, actually, Callous on My Soul, The Shadow 3. Callous on My Soul, he was an author. Callous on My Soul, The Shadows That Scare Me. He had a book called Nigger. And I suggest if you can get all 3 of them, get all 3 of them. And just read and understand a metamorphosis, if you will. I don't really get to talk about him, but one of my biggest friends, may Allah be pleased with him, it was a guy named Harry Weber. And I'm going to give you guys a classic outlier story. And while I'm doing that, I want you to start thinking about some of the outliers in your life. Because I want you to put them in the box. I want to find out about them. But while you're figuring out who the outliers were in your life, the people who did it differently, the people who were innovative, the people who made it seem strange or out there, but they were successful for what they believed. They did what they wanted to do. Their talents are the thing that led them across the finish line. It drove them, and it allowed them to execute. So While you're thinking about that, I'm going to tell a story. And the story is about a man. His name is Harry Weber. Now, many of you don't know Harry Weber, but if you know Motown, Chez Chez Le Femme, that song, a lot of stuff, a lot of commercials. He was the guy behind those. Some of the greatest commercials you ever saw were designed by this man named Harry Weber. Let me give you some of his commercials. He did My Baloney Has a First Name, I'm Stuck on Band-Aids because Band-Aids Stuck on Me, 7-Up the Uncola, Ford Quality's Job 1, and of course my favorite one. My favorite one is the slogan for the United Negro College Fund, which is, of course, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. I asked him about that campaign. He said the thing that was beautiful about that campaign was up to that point, brothers and sisters, it wasn't that, for the United Negro College Fund that a mind was a terrible thing to waste. He said it was the idea that you had to introduce in the public that black people had minds, that they could think. Not about them going to college, but they could think, which was an amazing concept, an extraordinary concept. He was an outlier his whole life. I could say he didn't necessarily fit in anywhere, but he was outside. He was a brilliant guy. His story actually starts. This is how I met him. I was researching an ad for Gatorade, the sports drink, and I wanted to do I had an ad pitch I wanted to do with Deion Sanders, and I started researching Gatorade, and I went to this website for black ad executives. It's called Kiss My Black Ads. That's what it's called. It's called Kiss My Black Ads, and they had something in their Gatorade, and someone had written this total rip blasting Gatorade for putting up blue Gatorade and red Gatorade in the Crenshaw district where the Bloods and the Crips, where the Bloods and the Crips were fighting and killing each other. Gatorade had the audacity to put up billboards with blue Gatorade and red Gatorade, and I thought, wow. First of all, who's that perceptive? This guy was. And it said the name was Harry Weber, and I thought it was like a pseudonym or something, and I researched it. And it turned out that it was an actual guy named Harry Weber. And I reached out to him and I did my research, and it turned out that Harry Weber actually got his first job. Check this out. He was the first artistic director of Motown. He got the job at 19 years old. The Four Tops recommended him to Berry Gordy. He said he was afraid of Berry Gordy, lived in fear of Berry Gordy. He said he only gave 2 suggestions to Berry Gordy his whole time. He said, number one, he gave the label to Michael Jackson as the king of pop, number one. And when Berry Gordy said, Motown was the music of black America, he said, no. He said, no, Mr. Gordy, the term should be Motown is the sound of young America. And he helped me frame a lot of what I did and what I'm doing right now, to be honest with you, brothers and sisters. But he was an outlier. And it was fun because he was older. It was fun to have these conversations about things I was thinking about. Sister Sultana, my consultant producer, suffers me greatly talking about all of these things I'd like to do. And I want to thank you, Sister Sultana. You're very patient. My brother's on here too, Johnny Thomas. Let me shout, because JT, oh my gosh, JT's had years of it, years of me talking these ideas through. But alhamdulillah, he seen me pull them off too, to the best of my abilities. And even more so than JT, there's my mom. God bless you, Mama. So I appreciate it. Kind words. But my mother was an outlier too. So my dad too, to an extent. Differently in the civil rights days, but they were outliers how they carried themselves. But I wanted to. My parents gave me the freedom, if you will, to be off, the freedom to be different. So I appreciate it as well. Let me throw this comment up before I go back up. Homeland Security as we travel. They want to intimidate us. Muhammad Ali, son, his wife, me and my son. Okay. Are you saying you guys are outliers, Sister Sultana? Muhammad Ali was, Muhammad Ali was my hero. I mean, he was my hero, but he was an early outlier. He was an early outlier. And here's the way I say Muhammad Ali was an outlier. Once he became a heavyweight champion of the world, and he was involved in the Nation of Islam, and he was he was drafted, right? He's drafted. This is very, very important because I have to remember this myself. He was drafted into the army. He refused to go into the army based on his religious beliefs. Here's the story that people don't know. The story is the higher-ups, Elijah Muhammad, actually told him, go ahead and go in the army because the army was going to give him a fluff job. He wasn't going to go overseas to Vietnam or anything like that. It was going to sort of be like the Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Robinson type of deal, just doing exhibitions for the morale of the troops. And he says, no. He says, no. And he's such an outlier. He goes, this is what you told me. While you're telling me I don't have to do it, I'm going to do it anyway. And in doing that, he creates this space for A, black identity, B, black protest at the highest levels. This is the merging, brothers and sisters, of sports and protest. Sports and protest. Of course, he has no idea that this thing is going to, we see Colin Kaepernick, we see, Black Lives Matter, stuff like that. But in that space, he says no. Literally, he had a fluff position. He had a fluff position. He says no. And what he said is the regardfulness of the brothers who had to go. Who had to go. If he had taken the position, then essentially he had violated all these things he believed in. Because there were people who weren't in his position who couldn't say no without going to jail. He put himself in a space where he said, listen, put me in prison. Put me in prison if that's what we have to do. Because he realized that there were the guys who had to go over to Vietnam who didn't have the lawyers, who didn't have the gravitas, who didn't have the fame, and they were in the prison called Vietnam. That, to me, is an outlier. Because as much as we celebrate Muhammad Ali now, the movies, his janaza, his legacy, at the time he did this, he was a hated man. He was a hated man. Now, he was hated by a bunch of white folks, you know that. But he was hated by black folks. He was hated by black folks. Who is this upstart Negro with a funny Muslim name telling this white man, I'm not going to go to your war? When I've had to send my sons and daughters off to this war. I mean, outlier. Absolute outlier. Anybody else have an example? So I'm going to throw out another outlier while you guys are figuring out. You only got a couple minutes here, so if you have an outlier, please throw it out. Dr. Vernon Johns. I suggest maybe if you get a chance, everybody, I'm not going to suggest. If you get a chance, look it up. Dr. Vernon Johns was basically Martin Luther King without the Civil Rights Movement. He's Martin Luther King without the Civil Rights Movement. And his advocacy for freedom and justice for African Americans, oh my gosh, it comes from an enlightened and engaged understanding of biblical text in terms of biblical text as a foundation for racial equality. Now, King had it later, but King watched Dr. Vernon Johns do it with no SCLC, with no civil rights, no NAACP. The guy was a pariah. I mean, he basically, wherever he set up as a church, they chased him out. They chased him out. And little do people know, it was his work early on that actually inspired and framed a lot of what Martin Luther King did. Because his understanding was not from Martin Luther King. There was no civil rights movement body, as I said. One Klan wanted to run up in your house and shoot you. That's what they did. They had the laws to protect them. This guy draws inspiration from David Walker. There's a book that you should all read. Not should all read. I would suggest. It's a book called The David Walker Appeals. And David Walker was a free slave. He was a free slave, sort of like in a merchant marine type of deal. And his appeal essentially was an abolitionist appeal, a black abolitionist appeal to people, telling folks that your Bible or your religious text bears you out to be hypocrites. Don't be hypocrites anymore. Let my people go. Let black people go. And the interesting thing, he was a free slave he would go down into the South, and this is a whole nother conversation. You go down to the South, and he remained a free slave. I mean, he had freedom papers, but he remained a free slave. And the genius of David Walker, why I say he's an outlier, is just the fact that I'm framing him as this free slave. He learns to write. The David Walker appeal is not a verbal thing. He writes out the appeal. This is for, and he didn't have money for printing presses, but he writes out the appeal, and what he would do is, because they have these clothes that they would take down for slaves or bring up from slaves, and he would sew the appeal into the clothing of this slave clothing. So when slaves would get it, they'd be like, what's this? And they pull out the appeal, and they would learn that there was an opposing position to slavery. And I thought it's just amazing. Okay, let me get Sultan Ali. I changed the language in America. I changed 4,000 names in America. Okay, well, who's that? Which outlier is that? Gotta give us the name. Give us the name. Okay. So some of my outliers are also musicians. There's one more, and I'm gonna end on this. She's a female, because I've given everybody males. She's a female. I don't know how many of you ever watched the movie Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars. Now, before I go any further, Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars is one of my favorite movies. Like, it's that, Shawshank Redemption, but Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars, except when Charlie Snow got cut up, I cried on that part. But it was it was this historical rendering of black entrepreneurship. Like we talked about Hank Aaron. We spoke about Hank Aaron and his accomplishments. May Allah be pleased with him. But you know what was interesting is that there's no Hank Aaron without the Negro League. And that's what Bingo Long and the Traveling All-Stars was. And the best part about it was, in the Negro League, the players felt like the owners took care of them, and they started their own team. Not a league, but they started their own team. And it just goes to show you just the complexity and the beauty of African-American spirit when it comes to business. But there's a character in there, in Bingo Long and Traveling All-Stars, played by Mabel King. Mabel King was an owner in among the Negro League teams. Her character, I believe, I could be totally wrong, was based on a woman you may not have heard of. It was based on a woman named Effa Manley. Effa Manley was a woman who owned, along with her husband, but she was in charge of it, she owned a Negro League baseball team. And the beautiful part of Effa Manley is that through her space as that, she created a literal understanding, a buying block, or financial pressure on stores to hire black women in her area. Think about that. She organized essentially one of the first boycotts organized by a black woman a black businesswoman. And, brothers and sisters, she also negotiated for fair pay between black baseball players and white baseball players. She's very instrumental for having something to do with the amount of money that Jackie Robinson got paid when he broke the color line. One of her arch enemies, if you will, if there is a villain, was Branch Rickey. Branch Rickey of the Brooklyn Dodgers, who actually bought on Jackie Robinson. But he had to deal with this woman named Effa Manley. So listen, that time went way too quickly. I'm sorry. So listen, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to go. I'm going to tell everybody, you know what? You don't have to be an outlier. You don't have to be an outlier to think like an outlier. To begin to expand your thought on processes around you, with news that you hear, or even dreams that you have. You don't have to be an outlier. But I'm going to say, maybe make the transitional difference between hitting the target no one else could hit and trying to hit the target no one else could see. And therein, brothers and sisters, lies the magic. The nuance, the thrill of not knowing, but also the thrill of it still feels right. And I encourage all of us to do that. So I want to see some outlier activities. You know, they say that proficiency comes when you have 10,000 hours worth of doing something. You know, people say, Dave Chappelle is the greatest comedian in the world. You know what Dave Chappelle had? He had time. I would easily say that he has over 10,000 hours on stage. I'm 54. I have 10,000 hours on stage. Some of the greats have 10,000 hours on stage. I'm not saying I'm great, but proficiency-wise, a lot of hours. My brother JT will tell you some of the horrible places we worked. And I want to apologize, JT, for telling you some of the rooms we went to. We went to rooms where there were no stages. We went to rooms where I had to stand on the bar. We went to rooms where I had to stand on the table. We went to rooms where, you know what, they wouldn't call off the television during the show. We went to rooms where people threw stuff at me. We went to rooms where I threw stuff back at those people. We went to rooms where people didn't want to pay you. We went to rooms where there was nobody in the audience except the people that had to work there. And they were mad because there's no one in the audience, and they still had to come to work. Nonetheless, it was hours, 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 hours. And I'd like to say those hours allowed me to come exactly where I am right now. Sister Son, I'm going to give you the okay, Muslim and Jews, because I just advertised in the Brighton Beach paper. His grandfather had changed the family name, so okay, we have to get the name of that person, Sister Sultana. I'd love to get. I actually would like to look him up, or look the person up, if possible, if you get a chance. But look, I'm going to get ready to get out of here. And I just want to thank you guys for kind of just rolling with me today. You know, and start thinking about some of the people who are in that space. Now, before we go, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor. Of course, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. I tell people all the time, when you're trying to do or work in this particular time, you know, it's very important to manage your finances. A lot of people were taken up with the storm around GameStop and stocks. You know that's well and good. That's situational. Don't take a page out of a book. Learn how to read the entire book. And then on that note, I'm going to tell everybody, check out www.BeFinanciallyIndependent.com or call 1-800-679-3175. This is an opportunity to sit with someone who does financial advising, but also financial planning, but also being able to explain financial process, how you save money, how you move money, how you protect your money. Okay, and it's led by no one other than Maxine B. Cade, better known as the Harriet Tubman of financial freedom, leading people from the slavery of debt. Make sure you give her a call at 1-800-679-3175, or you can go to the website at BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Everybody, this is a good show today. I really appreciate you, and you made it easy today. I don't know why y'all made it so easy on me today, but I really enjoyed the vibe. We'll be back for Friday Funnies. I think I'm gonna showcase a couple comedians for Friday Funnies. I believe, inshallah. Hopefully, nothing happens. The sky doesn't fall, and we'll be back here tomorrow. But want to make sure that we can hop in and enjoy ourselves and kick off Friday. We want to have a good Friday. And let me see. Our last comment is okay. Okay, all right, understood, Sister Sultan. I don't think I can divulge his name without being sued. We don't want you to get sued, sister. We don't want you to get sued, okay? But I appreciate you throwing that up. So everybody, I want you to again thank you. I appreciate you, and we're going to keep this thing moving. See you tomorrow, inshallah, okay? Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your shout out show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next shout out show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Throwback. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifatar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.